Welcome to the Agile Speaker Season 2. If you listen to Season 1, you'll know this show is all about communication, about being effective when you speak, wherever that is, from one-to-one meetings to the boardroom to 1,000-person keynote speeches. And the key message on this show is that agility. It's being adaptable, it's knowing your message, being prepared, and having that toolbox of speaking skills, of content, and mixing things up based on who you're speaking to. I'm your host for the show, Colin Gray, and podcasting is my business, so communication is total bread and butter for that. So I'm learning as much as you are from our Agile speaker herself, Maryanne Johnston, who's been teaching people and businesses how to be better communicators for more than a decade now. This show is all about sharing the science that Maryanne has developed around speaking and communication. Now, on this Season 2, we wanted to dive into one particular aspect of speaking, and it's an area that scares people quite a lot because there's a fair bit of pressure involved. Of course, I'm talking about the high-stakes game of elevator pitches. So let's jump into it. And just to make sure we're on the same page, I asked Maryanne, what exactly is an elevator pitch?
An elevator pitch is when you give a short description about yourself, about your business, or about your idea, and you explain it clearly and concisely so that your listener can understand it quickly and get it. It needs to be short, hence the name. It's called an elevator pitch because you should be able to present it during a brief ride in an elevator or a lift if you're in the UK. And it needs to spark interest and hopefully questions from your listener. It's a chance to tease their curiosity.
So we want to entice them. That doesn't mean giving all the detail right away, but just enough to interest. But I wondered, how often is this actually done in an elevator?
The answer to that's probably rarely. The context around an elevator pitch are, I suppose, in a formal sense, maybe you're at a conference and you're meeting people and networking and just chatting to people and describing what you do briefly to them. If you're attending an exhibition and you've got a stand and people are coming up and talking to you and asking you about what you do there, that's where it comes in as well. There are a lot of conferences around nowadays where companies are asked to do short elevator pitches on the stage in front of hundreds of people, and that's often a very fixed time and to a large audience, so high pressure for that one. But also perhaps if you're asked to speak on a panel at a conference, and very often the person that's hosting that panel might just say before they get started to the speakers, can you all just quickly give me a quick overview of the company you work for and what it is that you do? In a more informal basis, day to day, if you're going to meetings with people, if you're going to a drinks party somewhere or a dinner party or a networking event, those are the kind of situations that we're thinking about. And those are often the ones where you really probably are least prepared. Most of us could probably talk about our jobs or businesses until the cows come home. But that's not necessarily what your listener in any of those situations is really looking for. So it is something that we're all doing frequently, but it's often quite hard to get it right. And I think that one of the initial things that has to be thought about is who are the different audiences that you're meeting and speaking to, and trying to see things from their point of view. What do they need to hear about what you're talking about? There isn't one elevator pitch that you can use for every audience. There isn't one elevator pitch that your entire company can use to describe your business. The way that you explain what you do to potential customers will be different to how you explain it to an investor. But that in turn will be different to how you'd explain it to your children or to your friends. So you need to think about your audience and relate it to them to keep them interested. I've worked with so many clients over the years who've had really super technical businesses or products, And I love helping them to really dissect their pitch, finding out all of the really golden nuggets that they need to pull through, which earn their place, and then reassemble that pitch into a structure that creates impact and is clear for everybody. So being careful about, how you tone up or tone down the technical jargon depending on the audience. A few years ago, I worked with a gentleman who was preparing a 60-second pitch for an event called EIE, Engage, Invest, Exploit, which is an investor showcase in Edinburgh. Now, he, in his pitch, the first time he delivered it at the pitching workshop to the group, his business was a company in the life sciences sector working with pharmaceuticals. And he was really aiming his pitch at life science investors. Now, I'll never forget the first time he delivered that pitch to the group and used all sorts of words and jargon that just went straight over everybody's heads. And one of the particular words he said was macro cycles. So the company generated novel macrocycles for doing drug discovery and development. And I looked at him and I said, nobody there is going to understand what those are. What are macrocycles? I said, you've got to find a simpler way of describing that. And he said, Maryanne, if I don't include that one word, my credibility's gone. I have to use that term. So we worked really hard on getting that pitch down to kind of pitching it to your granny kind of level. And when he stood up on stage, he delivered a pitch that was really clear, really relatable and easy for the audience to get. But he managed to get the word macrocycles in not once, but actually twice in the end. So there's a real kind of knack to getting it right.
It's all about tailoring it to your audience. So in a situation where the audience is a bit mixed, like there, where it was investors inside the industry, they need to hear about the word macrocycles, but it's also investors outside and a more general audience who haven't a clue about chemical cycles, macro or otherwise. To bridge that gap, you need to know them, find some analogies, examples, comparisons, those things that bring it home to them really, really quickly.
I'll never forget the day that my daughter, age 6, asked me what it is I do for a living. What is it you're doing when you go to work, Mummy? And the way that I related my work to her was I talked to her about show and tell in the classroom at school. I said, that's really what a presentation is. And so she understood by that story, that context, what it is that I help people to do. And she could see how it fitted in with adults. So thinking about the audience is critical.
I wonder then, is there a magic formula here? If you search around online, certainly you'll find a whole bunch of people saying, this is the right way to do an elevator pitch. So I was curious whether Maryanne thought there was such a thing as a cookie cutter approach.
There probably is, but I don't believe that's necessarily the right way of going about it. Everybody in their businesses, in their jobs, are at different stages. They will have achieved different things. They will have much weightier, more important golden nuggets, as I call them, achievements that they've achieved in different aspects of that business. So for some people, the big part for them might be talking about their team and credentials, whereas for others, it might be about the problem that they solve and the big deal there. So there are lots of elements or lots of ingredients that you can bring into your elevator pitch. And it's about making it work for the audience, and it's also about making it work for you, the presenter. Because ultimately you need to be authentic in how you put that across. What's coming up in episode 2 is that we're going to talk about what those elements of pitch are. The kind of things you might want to think about. Episode 3 is going to be more about how you put the elements actually in together to create a great pitch, and the sorts of different orders that you can do it in to create impact. Episode 4 is going to tie up with some top tips, and also I'm going to talk through some of the mistakes that you're probably better to avoid. By the end of the series, you will have the skills and the thoughts and the ideas and the structure and the confidence to deliver your pitch to anyone, in any place, at any time.
Thanks for listening along to Season 2 of The Agile Speaker with Maryanne Johnston. You can read more about her work at maryannejohnston.co.uk. And remember, if you haven't already, head back and listen to Season 1 of the podcast, which takes you right through Maryanne's approach to agile communication.